Crime takes brains. These people did not get the memo. History is stuffed with smugglers whose master plans fell apart in the dumbest ways humanly possible. No detectives required. A frozen river that swallowed an entire truck of whiskey. A statue of Jesus that turned out to be solid cocaine. A speeding hearse that got pulled over for going 80 in a school zone. A weed-stuffed exhaust pipe that baked itself and gassed an entire highway. We lined up 111 of these geniuses, and somehow it keeps getting worse. Smash like, subscribe, and comment the dumbest one, because watching this is basically a free confidence boost. 1. During Prohibition, a Detroit bootlegger decided physics was for cowards and built a metal torpedo capsule to zip alcohol across the river on a cable line. The man was thrilled with his genius invention, picturing booze flying silently over the water. Then the cable snapped. That heavy projectile, packed with liquor, came screaming down and crashed directly into a docked Coast Guard cutter. The officers on board probably looked up just in time to watch their evening get extremely strange. He basically gift-wrapped his crime and mailed it straight to the people whose entire job was catching him. 2. Customs officials at a Texas crossing noticed something off about a traveler hauling an exceptionally heavy, life-size plaster statue of Jesus. A religious statue should not require a forklift. The agents grew suspicious, exchanged a few glances, and decided to inspect it closer. The statue cracked open during the process, and what spilled out was not holy at all. The entire thing was molded from compressed cocaine, every single inch of it. The traveler stood there watching his masterpiece crumble, while officers realized this guy had genuinely sculpted a drug statue and expected nobody to question why Jesus weighed 400 pounds. 3. A traveler flying into New York apparently believed his own pants were a soundproof vault. Agriculture specialists noticed dozens of tiny, distinct rustling sounds coming from his lower body, which is never a phrase anyone wants attached to them. They moved closer, the rustling continued, and the man tried to act completely natural. Inspectors discovered 14 live Guyanese singing finches stuffed inside custom cardboard tubes sewn into his trousers. The birds, true to their name, were singing. This man basically walked through a major airport as a one-person aviary, hoping nobody would notice his legs were chirping a cheerful little tune. 4. Cartel engineers got ambitious and built a massive metal ramp designed to launch a modified SUV completely over the southern border fence. On paper, it looked like an action movie stunt. In reality, the driver miscalculated the speed, which is a very bad thing to miscalculate when fences are involved. The SUV soared, lost momentum, and came down in the worst possible spot. The vehicle ended up high and dry, perfectly balanced on top of the fence posts, wheels spinning in open air. The driver sat there suspended between two countries, technically a record holder, while everyone nearby just stared in disbelief. 5. During the Civil War, a Confederate blockade runner thought he had outsmarted the entire Union Navy. He planned to bring British Enfield rifles past the blockade by submerging them in barrels labeled as pickled pork. Sneaky on paper, disastrous in practice. The salt brine that kept pork preserved did something very different to firearms. By the time the barrels reached their destination, the rifles were not weapons anymore. The salt completely corroded every firing mechanism into useless scrap metal. Confederate soldiers opened the barrels, expecting an arsenal, and instead found a collection of expensive, rusty paperweights soaking in pork juice. 6. Rum runners during Prohibition decided a frozen river was basically a free highway. They loaded a heavy flatbed truck with Canadian whiskey and drove confidently onto the ice, feeling clever and unstoppable. Unfortunately, nobody on the crew did the simple math involving weight and frozen water. The ice held for a hopeful moment, then made a sound nobody wanted to hear. It shattered instantly, and the entire truck plus its precious cargo sank in seconds. The runners stood on the bank watching bubbles rise where their fortune used to be, learning a chilly lesson about cargo, physics, and overconfidence. 7. A passenger arriving at JFK Airport got flagged for a strange reason. Her empty designer luggage weighed twice as much as it should have, which makes inspectors very curious very fast. She insisted everything was normal, but the scale strongly disagreed with her. Officers examined the suitcases and discovered the truth was built right into the bags themselves. The hard structural shells were made of chemically bonded cocaine paste, meaning the luggage was the contraband. She had not packed drugs at all. She had simply walked through the airport carrying drug-shaped suitcases, and the suspiciously heavy emptiness gave the whole operation away. 8. An exotic pet dealer came up with possibly the worst hiding spot in human history. He attempted to smuggle rare, protected tarantulas past border checks by lining his own underwear with them. He apparently believed the spiders would simply relax and cooperate with his plan. The tarantulas had other ideas. They bit straight through the fabric, and the dealer suddenly discovered exactly how venomous his merchandise was. He screamed out in pain right at the security gate, drawing every set of eyes toward him. Officers approached and found a man learning, very loudly, that spiders do not appreciate being smuggled in underwear. 9. Smugglers got incredibly crafty and compressed bricks of marijuana into the exact shape of an entire automotive exhaust system, then bolted it onto a car chassis. It was genuinely clever craftsmanship right up until they turned the engine on. Exhaust systems get extremely hot, which is a detail these geniuses somehow forgot. As they drove down the highway, the engine heat began baking their disguised cargo like an oven. The fake exhaust released a massive, inescapable cloud of smoke that rolled across the road. Every driver behind them got a free contact high, and the smugglers basically advertised their crime to the entire interstate. 10. Prohibition moonshiner Chuck Drake thought he had cracked the code on staying invisible. He carved real wooden cow hooves and attached them to the soles of his boots, planning to mask his footprints in the mud like a clever woodland ghost. There was just one tiny problem with his masterpiece. He bolted the hooves on backward. Every step he took pointed the prints in the wrong direction, so the trail he created led perfectly toward his own hidden distillery cabin instead of away from it. Federal agents simply followed the helpful arrows Chuck unknowingly left and walked straight up to his secret operation. 11. A bootlegger decided he needed a quick escape plan, so he built a hidden trapdoor into the bed of his delivery truck to drop cargo during a police chase. It was a solid idea, assuming the latch actually worked. During one ordinary trip, the truck hit a bump and the latch failed at the worst possible moment. 50 glass jars of high-proof moonshine slid out and dropped directly onto the hood of a trailing police cruiser. The officers inside got an instant shower of shattered glass and illegal liquor, and the bootlegger basically delivered the evidence himself, free of charge. 12. A traveler looked at a Thanksgiving turkey and saw not a meal, but a vault. He attempted to smuggle unrefined gold bars out of the country by baking them inside a massive holiday bird, confident nobody would suspect dinner. Gold, however, is extremely heavy, and turkeys are not structural engineering. As he carried his suspiciously dense poultry through the terminal, the weight became too much for the roasting pan. The bottom tore wide open, and the gold bars smashed onto the floor with a loud clatter. Travelers turned to watch a man stand frozen beside a turkey that had just laid solid gold. 13. A smuggler decided California needed venomous house guests and tried to bring in a collection of highly protected live scorpions. His brilliant hiding spot was a hollowed-out loaf of artisan sourdough bread. He apparently pictured the scorpions resting peacefully inside their cozy carb fortress. The scorpions did not relax. They stung their way straight through the outer crust, turning his innocent bakery item into a wriggling, dangerous mess. Anyone watching saw a man holding a loaf of bread that was visibly fighting back. The scorpions escaped their sourdough prison, and the smuggler discovered that bread makes a remarkably poor cage for angry arachnids. 14. A group of incarcerated individuals arranged a high-tech delivery, hiring a drone to fly a heavy bundle of contraband over the facility wall. The plan demanded a drone strong enough to carry the load, and theirs absolutely was not. The payload completely overtaxed the little rotors, and the machine started struggling almost immediately. It pitched forward, lost the fight with gravity, and crashed directly through the glass window of the warden's office. Of all the windows in the entire facility, the drone chose that one. The warden basically received a contraband gift delivered straight to his desk, perfectly addressed. 15. Revolutionary War smugglers needed to move black gunpowder without anyone noticing, so they hid it inside standard wooden milk barrels. It seemed like a reliable disguise for a long wagon journey. What they forgot was that wagons rock violently, and milk barrels do not appreciate that. The constant, brutal shaking churned the top layer of cream into thick butter. By the time they arrived, their gunpowder was sealed completely underneath a solid lid of fresh dairy. The smugglers opened the barrels expecting weapons supplies and instead found that their secret cargo had accidentally been turned into a homemade butter sandwich. 16. A crew of bootleggers put real effort into their disguise, repainting their delivery truck to perfectly mimic an official U.S. Post Office vehicle. The paint job looked convincing, the colors matched, and confidence was high. Then someone got to the emblem. They proudly painted the words, United States Mail, with an extra letter nobody bothered to double-check. To them, it looked official. To a local traffic officer, it looked like the most suspicious truck on the entire road. He pulled them over immediately, and the bootleggers got busted not by clever detective work, but by spectacularly bad spelling. 17. A traveler had a creative plan to smuggle cocaine without carrying any visible powder. He soaked liquid cocaine directly into all of his cotton designer shirts, letting them dry into ordinary-looking clothing. The chemistry worked a little too well. The shirts dried so incredibly stiff that they stood completely upright on their own, like cardboard cutouts of a person. He could not fold a single one into his suitcase no matter how hard he pushed. Anyone watching saw a man wrestling with shirts that refused to bend, packing luggage full of clothing that behaved like furniture instead of fabric. 18. A wildlife trafficker tried to slip protected baby sea turtles out of a Florida port using a hiding spot he thought was genius. He packed the tiny turtles inside a hollowed-out sesame seed hamburger bun, certain no security team would inspect fast food. Unfortunately, a security K9 was on duty, and that dog had priorities. The K9 completely ignored the turtles and zeroed in on the faint smell of meat residue clinging to the bun. The dog bit straight into the bun for the snack, and officers suddenly found themselves staring at a burger full of confused, blinking baby turtles. 19. A smuggler invested heavily in a customized pickup truck featuring a secret hydraulic floorboard compartment, the kind that opens with the push of a button. It felt high-tech and untouchable, until the electronics decided otherwise. The whole system suffered a total short circuit, and the hydraulic compartment locked itself shut permanently with the contraband sealed inside. No button, no override, no luck. The smuggler could not reach his own cargo no matter what he tried. In the end, mechanics had to literally saw the entire truck in half just to free the contraband from its expensive, malfunctioning metal tomb. 20. In the late 19th century, maritime smugglers came up with a tidy little scheme to move compressed opium bricks. They hid the opium inside the hollowed-out wooden legs of ordinary dining tables. Confident furniture would never raise suspicion. The plan ignored one stubborn enemy, which was moisture. Inside the damp ship's hold, the wooden table legs slowly rotted during the long voyage. Right on the Boston docks, in front of everyone, the legs burst open and spilled opium bricks across the planks. Dock workers watched a perfectly normal table dramatically fall apart and reveal it had been smuggling drugs the entire time. 21. Picture a speakeasy owner admiring his secret stash, hidden behind a false brick wall built to fool nosy police. He felt untouchable. What he never considered was the ancient plumbing line running directly behind that drywall. One quiet night, the old pipe burst, and water began silently flooding the hidden void where his reserve liquor sat. Pressure built and built until the entire brick facade simply gave up and collapsed outward into the bar. Customers watched a wall explode and reveal shelves of illegal booze, all because one forgotten pipe decided to ruin everybody's evening at once. 22. There was a passenger who genuinely believed peanut butter was the perfect criminal accomplice. He buried thousands of dollars worth of loose diamonds inside a jar of extra crunchy peanut butter, figuring the chunks would camouflage everything. Diamonds, however, do not blend in the way he imagined. On the X-ray screen, the difference between dense carbon stones and soft, oily spread showed up crystal clear, practically glowing for the inspector to see. The officer barely needed a second glance. The traveler had not hidden his diamonds at all. He had simply created the world's most expensive and most obvious jar of peanut butter. 23. Here is a heartbreaking one for the smuggler involved. A traveler wanted to sneak rare, protected wild pigeon eggs into the country, so he carefully taped them to his chest beneath his shirt. The plan required only one thing, which was remembering they were there. He completely forgot. When he reached the arrival gate and spotted his brother waiting, pure excitement took over, and he threw himself into an enthusiastic full-strength hug. Everyone heard the soft, sad crunch. He pulled back from the embrace, having instantly destroyed his entire shipment, ruined by nothing more than ordinary brotherly affection. 24. Rum runners loved dramatic escapes, and one crew installed a custom oil slick and smoke generator to blind any Coast Guard vessel chasing them. It sounded like something from a spy film. The flaw was simple: wind exists. During a chase, the smugglers triggered the smoke screen with great confidence, and then the wind suddenly shifted direction. The thick cloud meant for their pursuers blew straight back into their own faces, completely blinding the driver. Unable to see anything at all, he steered his speeding boat directly into a rocky pier. Their clever weapon had quietly switched sides and worked against them. 25. Colonial merchants in Boston thought sleeping pillows were the ideal way to dodge tea taxes. They stuffed oversized pillows full of untaxed Dutch tea leaves and carried them past customs, looking like travelers who simply loved a comfortable nap. Then they met an inspector who had clearly seen this trick before. He grabbed a long iron testing rod and jammed it straight through the bedding to feel what was inside. The rod came out trailing loose tea leaves everywhere. The merchants stood watching their cozy pillows leak evidence across the floor, betrayed by one suspicious man with a metal stick. 26. A moonshiner believed he had found the most peaceful workspace imaginable for his copper still. He set the whole operation up inside an abandoned, overgrown graveyard, certain nobody would ever bother wandering through tombstones at night. He did not account for the steam. Thick clouds of white vapor began rising from between the graves, drifting eerily through the dark. Locals noticed, panicked, and quickly decided the cemetery was undeniably haunted. Word spread fast, and soon police arrived to investigate the so-called supernatural activity. Instead of a ghost, they found a very alarmed moonshiner and a still puffing away among the dead. 27. Consider the smuggler who hollowed out hundreds of neon highlighters and packed each one full of illicit prescription pills. It was tedious, detailed work, and he was proud of how ordinary the markers looked. His confidence lasted right up until the border. An agent handed him a customs declaration form and politely asked him to sign it, then gestured at one of his own highlighters. He had no working pen on him, only fake ones. The moment he hesitated and fumbled, the agent understood everything. A simple request for a signature unraveled an entire box of carefully disguised contraband. 28. A traveler decided live tropical geckos would happily ride through customs tucked inside his socks. He believed the lizards would stay calm, cool, and motionless throughout the journey. The terminal had other plans. The warm, indoor air woke the geckos up, and they immediately began climbing, scrambling up his legs in every direction beneath his clothes. The man could not stay still. He broke into a wild, twitching, erratic dance right in the middle of the security area, slapping at his own pants. Officers naturally noticed the gentleman performing an interpretive lizard dance and pulled him aside instantly. 29. Illegal loggers built an impressive high-tension automated zip line stretching across a canyon, designed to silently move protected old-growth timber. The system looked powerful and efficient, exactly the kind of setup that makes criminals feel like geniuses. Then they loaded an enormous redwood log. The cable strained, groaned, and snapped under the massive weight, releasing the giant log into open air. Gravity took the wheel from there. The log plunged down and landed squarely on top of a parked Forestry Service truck, crushing it flat. The loggers had managed to deliver a stolen tree directly onto a government vehicle. 30. During the Civil War, female smugglers used their enormous hoop skirts as walking storage units, hiding contraband medical supplies within the layers of fabric. The disguise worked beautifully for hidden items that stayed quiet. Glass ether bottles, unfortunately, do not stay quiet. With every single step the women took, the heavy bottles knocked together and produced a loud, unmistakable clinking sound, like a wind chime, announcing a crime. Soldiers at the crossing heard the musical jingle long before they saw anything suspicious. The women were arrested mid-step, undone by a skirt that simply could not keep a secret. 31. Of all the things that can betray a criminal, a hungry farm animal rarely makes the list. A bootlegger covered crates of forbidden Canadian whiskey with thick, fresh clover hay piled on his wooden wagon, pleased with how innocent it looked. His own horse disagreed with the plan. Right in the middle of town, the animal stopped walking and started feasting on the camouflage like it was a buffet. Bite after bite, the hay vanished, and the whiskey crates rose into plain sight. A local deputy wandered over to find contraband proudly served up by one peckish horse. 32. Some smuggling plans fall apart because of bad luck, but this one fell apart because of good taste. A traveler poured liquid narcotics into an authentic labeled bottle of premium hot sauce and assumed the spicy disguise would protect him forever. His luck ran out when the customs officer turned out to be a serious chili enthusiast. The agent eagerly tipped the bottle to sample a single drop, expecting bold flavor, and instead got a tongue full of chemicals. His expression curdled immediately. A casual taste test had just exposed an entire operation hidden in condiment form. 33. Nothing ruins a quiet airport quite like a sudden indoor blizzard. Wildlife traffickers hid illegal exotic bird feathers inside ordinary stuffed teddy bears, certain the harmless toys would breeze past every checkpoint. The conveyor belt had other intentions. Somewhere amid the rough baggage handling, the teddy bear seams ripped wide open and released everything inside. The baggage claim area filled instantly with swirling pink synthetic fluff and bright feathers drifting through the air. Confused travelers swatted at the floating chaos, while the traffickers watched their carefully hidden contraband scatter across the terminal in full public view. 34. It is rare for a smuggling mission to be defeated by a playlist, yet here we are. An ultra-light motorized glider was carrying contraband across a remote desert border, running entirely on limited battery power. The pilot, apparently treating this like a road trip, cranked the built-in Bluetooth audio system to maximum volume for the whole flight. The music drained the battery far faster than the engine could afford. Power faded mid-air, and the glider sank gently into the empty desert sand. He ended up stranded beside his cargo, having sacrificed a clean getaway for loud entertainment. 35. Espionage gear is only as smart as the human carrying it. During the Cold War, agents built an ingenious hollowed-out silver coin designed to secretly transport microfilms, a true marvel of spy craftsmanship. The whole operation depended on one courier keeping track of a single pocket. He failed spectacularly. Reaching absent-mindedly into his loose change, the courier grabbed the top-secret device and handed it over to buy a newspaper at a Manhattan Street kiosk. The vendor tossed a priceless intelligence tool into his cash drawer, like pocket money. An entire operation evaporated into a newsstand. 36. Backup plans are supposed to wait until they are needed. A Prohibition rum runner tied his liquor crates to a heavy anchor, intending to dump everything overboard only if patrol boats ever closed in. The rope, however, did not understand timing. During a completely ordinary patrol check, with absolutely no danger present, the line snapped entirely on its own. The anchor immediately did exactly what anchors do and hauled every crate down to the ocean floor. The rum runner simply stood on his deck, staring at the water, watching his entire fortune disappear for no reason at all. 37. Shoes can hide a lot, but they still have to hold up a human being. A passenger hollowed out the platform heels of his footwear and crammed them full of dense contraband, feeling completely confident as he boarded his flight. Physics, unfortunately, had not signed off on the design. The weakened heels could not bear his weight, and while he strolled down the aircraft aisle, both of them snapped off at the very same instant. He pitched sideways in front of every passenger, suddenly shorter and standing in a small puddle of contraband he could never explain. 38. A stroller usually announces the presence of a sleepy infant, not a wild animal. A woman attempted to smuggle a protected baby chimpanzee into Florida by dressing it in tiny infant clothes and tucking it beneath a blanket like a napping child. Chimpanzees, sadly for her, do not behave like babies. As an agent leaned in for a routine peek, the chimp snapped awake and snatched the sunglasses straight off the officer's face. Everyone went silent. The agent found himself staring at a delighted chimp modeling his stolen shades, and the entire stroller story crumbled instantly. 39. Trusting a machine to commit your crime for you is a bold gamble. A smuggling crew loaded illicit goods onto an automated GPS-guided cargo drone, programmed to follow a quiet, precise route across the border. Magnetic interference quietly destroyed that idea. The drone's navigation scrambled, and the aircraft began drifting steadily in the wrong direction with nobody able to call it back. It cruised for miles before finally descending into the worst possible spot, the middle of an active bomb testing range at a military base. The drone had essentially flown the contraband straight into the Army's hands. 40. Disguising treasure works fine until the treasure is simply too heavy to behave. During the California gold rush, a group of miners melted down stolen gold and painted it to resemble plain iron cooking pots, then stacked the disguised haul onto their wagon. The paint fooled the eye, but nothing could fool gravity. Gold weighs vastly more than iron, and as the wagon rumbled along the trail out of town, the pots punched straight through the wooden floorboards. Passers-by watched a load of innocent-looking cookware drop through a wagon like a pile of falling cannonballs. 41. Driving a getaway vehicle slowly is boring, but it does keep you out of jail. A bootlegger hid his whiskey cases inside a formal funeral hearse, betting that a solemn black vehicle would earn instant respect and zero suspicion. The disguise was genuinely smart. His driving was not. He went tearing down the road at 80 miles per hour straight through a school zone in a vehicle meant for grieving processions. An officer naturally noticed the speeding hearse and pulled him over. The bootlegger had the perfect cover and ruined it by treating a funeral car like a race car. 42. Rough baggage handlers have ended more criminal careers than any detective. A traveler stuffed hundreds of hollowed-out vanilla wafer cookies with illicit chemical paste, picturing a flawless dessert-shaped disguise. The luggage system had no respect for his craftsmanship. Somewhere between check-in and arrival, the suitcase got thrown, dropped, and crushed, and so did every fragile cookie inside it. When he opened his bag, he found no neat little wafers at all. His expensive contraband had merged with the crumbs into a single sticky, vanilla-scented blob, completely unrecoverable and impossible to sell to anyone on the planet. 43. Cold weather can make a creature look dead when it is merely waiting. A traveler tried to bring in rare protected giant jewel beetles by pinning them to the inside lining of his heavy winter coat, assuming they were lifeless specimens. They were only dormant. Once the warmth of the terminal seeped into the fabric, the beetles stirred back to life and began crawling across the man's neck during his customs interview. He twitched and squirmed mid-sentence while bugs paraded over his collar. The officer simply watched the human insect display and reached for the paperwork. 44. Half-finished crimes have a way of becoming permanent monuments. An illegal logging crew rigged a mechanical winch system to drag protected timber across a northern border river under the cover of darkness. The plan moved smoothly until the gears suddenly seized up. The winch jammed completely halfway through its task, leaving a massive, ancient log dangling directly over the international waterline, going neither forward nor back. The crew yanked and cursed, but the machine refused to budge. By morning, their secret operation had transformed into a giant suspended tree, advertising the crime to both countries at once. 45. Forgetting your own clever trick is a uniquely painful way to lose. In the 1850s, a miner hid stolen gold dust inside the bowl of his tobacco pipe, concealing it under a thin layer of leaf. The hiding spot was excellent, right until habit took over. Out of pure routine, he struck a match and lit his pipe, completely forgetting what was packed underneath the tobacco. The heat melted the gold dust into a solid, molten lump, which then cooled and fused directly to his teeth. He gained a permanent gold smile and lost his entire stash instantly. 46. Mountain streams are beautiful, and they are also terrible at keeping secrets. A moonshiner washed out his fermentation barrels in a pristine creek, assuming clean running water would simply carry his mess away unnoticed. Instead, the chemical residue turned the water a strange, milky white that flowed clearly downstream for anyone to see. Revenue agents working the area spotted the bizarre discoloration and realized it had to lead somewhere interesting. They followed the pale, cloudy trail upstream like a painted arrow and walked straight into the moonshiner's operation, guided there by his own careless cleanup routine. 47. A hiding place that depends on staying cool is doomed inside a hot warehouse. A smuggler hollowed out a massive wheel of gourmet Swiss cheese and tucked plastic bags of contraband deep inside it. The disguise smelled convincing and looked solid, but the airport warehouse had no air conditioning. As the heat climbed, the enormous cheese wheel slowly began to melt into a greasy, sagging puddle. The plastic bags inside lost their cozy dairy cover and slid into plain view. Workers found a slowly collapsing cheese disaster, quietly revealing the contraband it had been trusted to hide. 48. Living things tend to ruin the very things smugglers hide them in. A collector pressed rare, endangered tropical butterflies between the pages of a giant law textbook, expecting a tidy, flat, invisible shipment. The butterflies had not been preserved, so they still carried natural moisture. That dampness seeped into the paper and slowly glued the textbook pages together until the entire book sealed itself permanently shut. The collector ended up with a solid brick of paper he could not even open. He had managed to destroy both the rare butterflies and an expensive law book simultaneously. 49. There is bad timing. And then there is catching fire in the inspection lane. A smuggler drove a vehicle outfitted with a hidden electronic floorboard compartment, confident in his concealed engineering. Wiring, however, does not care about confidence. The system suffered a sudden, major electrical failure, and sparks quickly grew into real flames inside the car. The fire erupted at the worst possible second, exactly as the vehicle rolled into the active border inspection lane. Agents watched a smoking car arrive on its own, and the smuggler had to abandon his burning evidence in front of everyone. 50. Hungry rats have no respect for luxury goods or criminal planning. Early American merchants hid taxable French lace inside hollowed-out loaves of sourdough bread aboard a cargo ship, trusting bread to look perfectly ordinary. The ship's resident rats had different ideas. A whole family of them broke into the pantry and gnawed straight through the bread crusts to reach the soft interior. While they were at it, they shredded the delicate lace into useless scraps. The merchants opened their hiding spot expecting valuable fabric, and instead found chewed crumbs and a very well-fed rodent population. 51. Summer heat has a way of exposing crimes that winter would have politely hidden. A prohibition rum runner tried to mask his alcohol cargo by burying it under a thick layer of fresh Atlantic cod, confident the fish would fool any nose. Then a midday traffic delay trapped him in the blazing sun. The cod began to spoil with shocking speed, and the smell grew into something genuinely unbearable. The stench got so blinding and overwhelming that the rum runner was forced to pull over just to escape his own truck. His disguise had rotted into a rolling biohazard. 52. Weighing yourself down with gold is great until you cannot stand upright. A passenger tried to smuggle heavy gold chains by weaving them into an incredibly dense, custom steel-lined undergarment vest worn beneath his clothes. The vest held the gold beautifully, but it also turned him into a wobbling, top-heavy mess. Every time he shifted in the security line, the brutal weight dragged him off balance and sent him toppling over. He kept rising, swaying, and crashing back down like a confused bowling pin. Officers noticed the man who simply could not remain vertical and pulled him aside. 53. Airplane seats apply more pressure than smugglers tend to expect. A man tried to bring in protected tropical fish by sealing them inside water-filled plastic bags hidden within the lining of his winter coat. The plan worked fine while he was standing. The moment he settled into his airplane seat, his own body weight pressed firmly against the coat and the bags inside it. They burst all at once. Cold water and panicked little fish flooded through his clothing, soaking him completely. He spent the rest of the flight drenched, shivering, and smelling faintly of an aquarium. 54. Cutting corners on a tunnel is a decision the tunnel will eventually return to you. Builders constructing an elaborate subterranean cross-border passage decided to save money by using cheap, untreated pine, 2x4s instead of proper structural steel. The wood looked sturdy enough to people who wanted it to. Underground pressure, however, does not negotiate. Before a single shipment ever passed through, the flimsy supports gave way and the entire tunnel collapsed in on itself. Months of secret digging vanished into a heap of dirt and snapped lumber. They had buried their own operation before it even opened. 55. A walking cane only protects its secrets if its owner remembers to keep walking with it. A Civil War courier hid top-secret military dispatches inside the hollowed-out shaft of a decorative wooden cane, a genuinely elegant hiding place. Unfortunately, the courier stopped at a local tavern along his route. Drinks were poured, conversation flowed, and his focus drifted completely away from his mission. When he finally left, he walked out empty-handed, leaving the cane leaning casually against the bar. The bartender later picked it up, gave it a curious shake, and discovered an entire pocket of military secrets. 56. Mixing strong alcohol with dairy produces results no chemistry teacher would recommend. A bootlegger poured his raw moonshine into a commercial milk tanker truck, certain that a dairy delivery would draw no attention whatsoever. He never asked what happens when high-proof spirits meet milk. The two liquids reacted violently inside the tank, curdling almost instantly. By the time he reached his destination, his 500 gallons of moonshine had transformed into a tank full of solid, lumpy cheese chunks. He opened the hatch expecting liquor and found a giant cheese cauldron completely unsellable and impossible to pour. 57. Hiding contraband inside electronics works poorly when the electronics fight back. A traveler hollowed out a laptop battery casing and packed the empty space full of contraband, leaving the modified contacts dangerously close to the bare metal shell. The moment he powered through security, those exposed contacts shorted against the casing. The laptop responded by hissing, smoking, and throwing sparks right there on the inspection table. Agents jumped back as the device dramatically self-destructed in front of them. The traveler stood beside his small electrical fire, having essentially set off an alarm built from his own computer. 58. Some smuggled cargo is incapable of staying quiet, and parrots are at the top of that list. A man tried to move rare protected Amazonian parrots by tranquilizing them and slipping them into cardboard postal tubes. The plan relied entirely on the birds staying asleep. One parrot disagreed. It woke up early inside the overhead bin and immediately began shrieking a stream of colorful profanities for the whole cabin to enjoy. Passengers turned, snickered, and pointed at the loud, foul-mouthed bin. Flight attendants opened it to find a furious parrot loudly confessing the entire smuggling operation. 59. Underwater equipment is only useful when somebody remembers to charge it. A smuggling crew planned to use a high-powered motorized sea scooter to tow a diver and a cargo line across a bay. The scooter was the heart of the entire operation, and they completely forgot to plug it in. When the diver triggered the dead device, nothing happened at all. He found himself floating helplessly in the middle of a busy shipping lane, clutching cargo and a useless machine. Instead of a smooth crossing, he got a long, exposed drift directly in the path of passing boats. 60. Sweetness travels through wood far better than smugglers would like. In the 18th century, colonial merchants hid illegal Caribbean molasses inside barrels marked as industrial pine tar, trusting the harsh label to repel curiosity. The molasses, however, refused to stay discreet. Its rich, sugary scent leaked steadily through the wooden staves and drifted out into the open air. Soon, a massive black swarm of local flies descended on the barrels, buzzing thickly around cargo that supposedly held nothing but tar. The merchants watched the insects gather and knew their sweet-smelling secret had already been completely exposed. 61. A hidden room is only a clever idea while the door still works. A speakeasy owner installed a massive counterweighted revolving mirror wall to conceal his secret backroom bar, proud of his theatrical engineering. During a surprise inspection, the mechanism chose the worst possible moment to fail. The revolving wall jammed solid, sealing 20 paying customers inside a dark, windowless room with no ventilation. They sat trapped in the stuffy blackness while inspectors wandered nearby. The owner's masterpiece had become a sealed box full of suffocating patrons, and freeing them basically handed police a confession with 20 witnesses attached. 62. Cabin pressure has ended more smuggling plans than any sniffer dog ever could. A traveler hid loose uncut diamonds inside a pressurized tube of whitening toothpaste, certain a bathroom item would never be questioned. He forgot what altitude does to sealed tubes. As the aircraft climbed, the changing pressure squeezed the tube until it finally ruptured mid-flight. Inside the tiny airplane bathroom, mint paste and glittering diamonds sprayed across the walls, the mirror, and the sink. The traveler stared at the sparkling, minty crime scene, knowing there was absolutely no innocent way to explain a diamond-covered lavatory. 63. Cardboard is no match for a reptile that wants out. Wildlife traffickers tried to move protected baby alligators across state lines inside a box, cheerfully labeled as plastic toy replicas. The disguise might have worked if the alligators had been willing to act like toys. They were not. The little reptiles tore straight through the cardboard packaging and began snapping viciously at the baggage handlers nearby. Workers leaped backward as a supposed box of toys revealed a squad of angry, biting wildlife. The traffickers had essentially shipped a crate of tiny, furious dinosaurs into a busy facility. 64. A hidden fuel tank is a fantastic idea right up until the engine drinks from it. A smuggler modified a sedan with a secret secondary tank designed to carry contraband chemicals controlled by a simple mechanical switch. That switch betrayed him completely. It failed at the wrong moment, and the engine began pulling the illicit chemical into the fuel line instead of gasoline. The motor coughed, sputtered, and tore itself apart from the inside. The smuggler ended up stranded with a destroyed engine, having accidentally fed his own car a poisonous meal of pure contraband. 65. Overloading a ship has a way of announcing exactly how much you are hiding. During the Spanish-American War, a merchant vessel concealed illegal crates of rifles beneath an enormous pile of ordinary industrial coal. The disguise looked convincing on the surface. The waterline told a different story. The combined weight of metal upon metal pushed the ship so dangerously low that it practically wallowed in the harbor. Suspicious harbor police noticed the vessel riding far deeper than any normal coal ship should and decided to board it. The merchant's heavy secret had quietly pulled itself into plain view. 66. Liquid is far heavier than smugglers ever seem to remember. A bootlegger built a massive lead-lined iron tank inside a standard delivery truck, intending to haul a fortune in spirits across the county. He calculated the disguise carefully, and the fluid weight not at all. The fully loaded truck became a rolling anvil. When it reached a small, historic wooden-covered bridge, the ancient timbers simply could not hold such a load. The truck crashed straight through the bridge in a shower of splintered wood. He had managed to demolish a local landmark with nothing but overconfidence and liquor. 67. A disguise fails the instant the contents start to sparkle. A passenger tried to pass off illicit chemical powder by sealing it inside an authentic baby formula container, certain the label alone would protect him. Then the customs officer opened the lid. Instead of soft, dull formula, the agent saw a highly crystalline substance glittering brightly under the harsh fluorescent lights. Baby formula does not shimmer like treasure. The officer immediately understood that whatever was inside the can had never been meant to feed a child. One quick glance at the sparkle unraveled the whole story. 68. Smuggling a plant against your own skin is a gamble your body might refuse to allow. A traveler tried to move rare endangered wild orchids out of a tropical region by taping them directly around her waist beneath her dress. The orchids, however, did not cooperate quietly. Her skin reacted violently to the exotic plants, erupting into a severe, blistering allergic rash that spread across her midsection. The pain grew bad enough to require real medical intervention. Officials soon found themselves treating a woman whose own body had loudly exposed the protected flowers wrapped around her. 69. Trusting the ocean to babysit your fortune is a deeply optimistic plan. Maritime smugglers used a specialized GPS-tracked buoy to drop contraband into the water for a later pickup, confident the technology would guide them back. Everything depended on one lithium battery. That battery died far sooner than expected, taking the buoy's signal silently with it. The valuable cargo sat somewhere beneath the waves with no way to ever locate it again. Deep ocean currents quietly carried the smuggler's fortune off into the dark. They had essentially gift-wrapped their treasure and handed it to the sea. 70. A disguise made of dye lasts only until the next rainstorm. In the 1800s, fur traders tried to pass off cheap, common rabbit pelts as luxury black mink furs by coating them in heavy liquid chemical dye. On a clear day, the fakes looked genuinely convincing. The weather had not agreed to cooperate. A sudden torrential downpour swept across the shipping docks and began rinsing the pelts in the open air. The black dye streamed off in dark rivers, washing straight into the harbor. The traders watched their valuable mink shipment transform back into a pile of soggy rabbits. 71. A fire indoors needs somewhere for its smoke to go, and forgetting that can be deadly to a plan. A moonshiner set up his copper still deep inside a limestone cave, certain the rock walls would hide both the flames and the glow. He simply never built a proper exhaust vent. The smoke had nowhere to escape except back into his own lungs. Choking and gasping, he was forced to stagger out of the cave into the open air, coughing violently. Waiting right outside stood a sheriff, who watched the moonshiner stumble directly into his arms. 72. Old coins and modern pockets do not mix as smoothly as a thief might hope. A smuggler tried to hide rare, historic, ancient gold coins by tossing them into a velvet pouch filled with ordinary pocket change. To the eye, it looked like harmless money. To the fingertips, it told on him instantly. The historic coins were nearly 3 times thicker than a modern quarter, and anyone who reached into that pouch could feel the strange, chunky outsiders immediately. The officer barely had to look. A simple touch was enough to separate priceless history from spare change. 73. Some creatures leave a confession trail wherever they go. A collector tried to import protected giant African land snails by tucking them into the deep pockets of his trench coat, picturing a slow, silent, invisible journey. Snails, however, are anything but tidy passengers. As they crept around inside the fabric, they produced thick, glistening trails of slime that soaked steadily through the lining. Soon, wet, shiny streaks were leaking visibly through the front of his pants for everyone to see. The collector walked through customs, slowly oozing evidence, betrayed by the unmistakable signature of his own cargo. 74. A remote-controlled vehicle is only loyal while its signal holds. Criminals engineered a specialized motorized surfboard to quietly ferry contraband across a narrow river channel, steering it from a safe distance. The whole scheme balanced on one fragile radio antenna. When that antenna snapped, the surfboard lost all guidance and kept its throttle wide open. With no one able to control it, the board powered itself straight across the water and rammed directly into a well-lit Border Patrol boat dock. The criminals watched from the shore as their invention cheerfully delivered the contraband to law enforcement. 75. Salt preserves many things, but tea is tragically not one of them. During the Revolutionary War, a merchant attempted to smuggle taxed British tea by burying it inside large barrels of coarse pickling salt. Sure, the disguise would survive the trip. The salt had its own plans. Moisture from the brine seeped steadily into the dried tea leaves, soaking and contaminating every last one of them. By the time the barrels were opened, the entire shipment had absorbed a heavy, briny flavor and tasted exactly like seawater. The merchant had successfully smuggled tea nobody on Earth would drink. 76. In a moment of panic, a person will reach for the wrong lever almost every time. A bootlegger modified his coupe with a clever system to dump motor oil onto the road and end police chases in a slick. The mechanism worked perfectly. His nerves did not. During a high-speed pursuit, with adrenaline flooding his brain, he grabbed the wrong lever entirely. Instead of releasing oil, he released his whole inventory of expensive illegal alcohol, splashing it across the asphalt behind him. The pursuing officers simply followed the glistening river of moonshine straight to their very embarrassed suspect. 77. A good hiding spot should never come with its own sound effects. A traveler hollowed out the thick leather heels of his custom cowboy boots and packed the hidden space with contraband, admiring how ordinary they still looked. The damage he did to the boots, however, was not silent. The weakened, hollowed heels began producing a loud, rhythmic whistling squeak with every single step he took across the terminal floor. He could not walk anywhere without announcing himself like a noisy cartoon. Agents simply followed the strange, chirping footsteps and intercepted the man whose boots refused to stop singing. 78. Keeping eggs warm is good advice, unless the warmth comes from a heating element. Smugglers tried to move protected falcon eggs by nestling them inside a high-end thermal coffee thermos, hoping to keep the delicate cargo cozy and safe. They made one catastrophic mistake. They left the thermos heating function switched on for the entire journey. Instead of gently warming the eggs, the device slowly cooked them. By the time the thermos was opened, the priceless endangered falcon eggs had been boiled completely solid. The smugglers had carefully transported a thermos of very rare, very expensive hard-boiled eggs. 79. A digital lock will obey its password and absolutely nobody else. A modern smuggling network stored all of its drop locations and inventory details on a single encrypted drive, treating it as the brain of the operation. Everything depended on the tech operator remembering the master password. He forgot it completely. After too many failed attempts, the drive did exactly what it was designed to do and locked itself permanently, sealing every secret inside. The entire crew was suddenly cut off from their own coordinates and their own product. They had been locked out of their business by a forgotten word. 80. Receiving the wrong package can turn an innocent man into an accidental explosion survivor. In colonial times, smugglers hid illegal black gunpowder inside a shipment of ordinary white flour sacks, confident the disguise would pass quietly through town. A simple mix-up shattered that plan. A local baker received one of the wrong sacks entirely by mistake and carried it cheerfully into his bakery like normal flour. When he loaded it near his hot brick oven, the gunpowder ignited and a sharp blast blew the oven door clean off its hinges. The baker had unknowingly baked a bomb. 81. Cheap building materials always send the bill eventually. A Prohibition-era truck driver stacked heavy beer barrels behind a false wall made of hollow decorative bricks, proud of how solid the fake barrier appeared. Dirt roads, however, are merciless judges of craftsmanship. Mile after mile, the relentless vibration shook and ground the flimsy bricks until they crumbled into loose powder. Somewhere mid-trip, the entire wall simply disintegrated, sliding down into a dusty heap and exposing the contraband behind it. The driver arrived with his secret stash sitting in plain sight, surrounded by what used to be a wall. 82. Artwork is light, and a yoga mat that weighs a ton tells its own story. A passenger tried to hide valuable stolen historic art prints by rolling them tightly inside a cheap generic foam exercise mat. The disguise looked casual enough to belong to any traveler. The weight, though, was all wrong. A foam mat should feel like nothing, yet this one was unnaturally heavy and stiff as a board. The security agent lifted it, frowned at the impossible heft, and immediately pulled it aside for manual inspection. The mat had quietly betrayed every secret rolled inside it. 83. Plastic water bottles make poor prison cells for determined creatures. A traveler tried to smuggle protected exotic medical leeches by sealing them into ordinary bottles tucked among his clothing. The lids, unfortunately, were not nearly as secure as he believed. They leaked steadily inside his luggage, and the leeches seized the opportunity to explore. When he finally opened his suitcase, dozens of live leeches were stuck firmly to the outside of his clean, folded shirts. He stood there staring at a wardrobe slowly covered in wriggling passengers, his disguise completely undone by a few loose caps. 84. A vehicle with no recovery plan is one bad rock away from total defeat. Criminals built a specialized remote-controlled robotic Land Rover to haul contraband across rugged desert sand, confident it could handle the terrain. It handled almost everything except a single small jagged rock. The rover struck it, lost balance, and flipped completely onto its back like a helpless turtle. There it stayed, wheels spinning uselessly in the open air, unable to right itself no matter what the operators tried. They watched their expensive machine slowly drain its battery while lying upside down in the empty desert. 85. Loose livestock have ruined more smuggling plans than most lawmen ever could. During the War of 1812, merchants tried to sneak British leather boots into the country by burying them beneath a deep load of hay on a wagon. The disguise convinced every human who passed. It did not convince the cattle. A herd of loose town cows surrounded the parked wagon and began contentedly devouring the hay pile, treating the camouflage as lunch. Bite by bite, the hay vanished and the boots emerged into full daylight. The merchants returned to find their secret cargo grazed wide open. 86. The most dangerous person near a secret stash is sometimes the one who lives with you. A moonshiner hid his clear alcohol jars inside a hollowed-out stack of decorative firewood on his front porch, pleased with his quiet little vault. He simply never told his wife. On a chilly evening, wanting a cozy fire, she gathered the entire stack and tossed it straight into the living room fireplace. The high-proof moonshine met the flames and answered with a massive fireball that roared up the chimney. The moonshiner's secret had announced itself in the most explosive way imaginable. 87. Hard objects make a sound that soft pills never will. A smuggler tried to hide loose diamonds inside a standard plastic bottle of soft gel multivitamins, assuming one bottle in a bag would draw no notice. The bottle, however, would not stay quiet. Every time it moved, the hard stones rattled against the plastic with a sharp, high-pitched clinking that gentle gel capsules simply cannot produce. An agent gave the bottle a routine shake and instantly heard the wrong music. The weight felt wrong, the sound felt wrong, and the smuggler's sparkling secret rattled itself straight into discovery. 88. Fragile cargo and the open ocean are a partnership destined for disaster. In the 19th century, maritime smugglers packed compressed contraband inside a large shipment of delicate porcelain dolls, trusting the pretty figures to pass inspection untouched. The Atlantic had no interest in their plan. A severe storm battered the ship for hours, hurling the cargo around the hold without mercy. By the time the weather cleared, the entire shipment had shattered into thousands of loose, rattling pieces. The smugglers opened the crates to find their disguise destroyed and their contraband scattered among a heap of broken dolls. 89. Machinery left exposed to the desert will happily swallow the desert. A smuggling crew built a mechanical conveyor belt running completely underneath a border fence, eager for an automated way to move their goods. In their excitement, they forgot to cover the drive assembly. On its very first operational run, loose desert sand poured steadily into the exposed gears. The fine grit ground everything to a halt, locking the entire mechanism solid before a single shipment crossed. The crew stood over their jammed invention, defeated not by patrols or police, but by ordinary sand doing what sand does. 90. Wax paper is a thin shield against an ocean of grease. Civil War blockade runners hid luxury European silk fabrics inside dirty, industrial wagon grease barrels, certain no one would dig through something so filthy. The plan rested entirely on a flimsy inner layer of protective wax paper. That paper leaked. Slowly and thoroughly, thick black axle grease seeped through and soaked into the fine silk, staining every delicate thread beyond any hope of cleaning. When the runners finally retrieved their cargo, they found not elegant fabric, but ruined, blackened rags worth absolutely nothing to anyone. 91. Adding weight to a hidden compartment can quietly turn a car into a fireworks show. A bootlegger built a heavy iron compartment beneath his car seat and loaded it with full liquor bottles, confident it sat safely out of sight. The sheer weight had other plans. Bottle by bottle, the load pressed the thin sheet metal lower and lower until it began dragging against the highway asphalt. The friction threw up a long, brilliant trail of sparks behind the moving car. He cruised down the road glittering like a comet, basically lighting a path straight to himself. 92. A book that weighs almost nothing is practically begging to be opened. A traveler tried to conceal contraband inside a hollowed-out vintage leather hardback dictionary, picturing the perfect scholarly disguise. The flaw was simple physics. A thick dictionary that size should feel substantial in the hand, yet this one was strangely, suspiciously light. The customs agent picked it up, immediately sensed the wrongness of the weight, and did the most natural thing possible. He flipped it open. The hollow interior and its hidden cargo greeted him at once, exposed by nothing more than the absence of pages. 93. Modern X-ray machines recognize shapes that human eyes might happily ignore. Smugglers tried to bring in rare, edible bird nests by burying them inside a box packed with generic household electronics. To anyone glancing at the box, it looked thoroughly ordinary. The terminal scanner disagreed instantly. The unique, organic crescent shape of the bird nests stood out sharply against the tangle of wires and circuits on the X-ray monitor. The operator spotted the strange curves immediately, knowing electronics never look like that. The contraband had been betrayed by its own unmistakable silhouette glowing on a screen. 94. A hidden door behind a mirror only stays hidden while the mirror stays whole. A speakeasy concealed its backroom entrance behind a large framed wall mirror, a trick that fooled customers for a long time. Then a bar fight broke out. A rowdy patron hurled a heavy glass mug across the room, and it slammed straight into the mirror, shattering the glass into a glittering spray. With the mirror gone, the secret door stood plainly revealed for all to see. Unluckily for the owner, one of the witnesses to that reveal happened to be an undercover detective. 95. Cold disguises stop disguising the moment they warm up. A passenger tried to hide liquid contraband by sealing it inside a standard medical ice gel pack, trusting its innocent everyday appearance. The security gate area, however, was not refrigerated in the slightest. As the pack sat in the ordinary room warmth, it softened, weakened, and finally split right open on the conveyor belt. Out poured a bright blue, chemically pungent fluid that no genuine ice pack should ever contain. Agents stared down at the glowing puddle, and the traveler's frosty little plan melted into a very obvious problem. 96. Empty cargo space can shout louder than any siren. A moonshiner disguised his delivery vehicle as a local commercial plumbing repair van, painting it carefully to look completely legitimate. He nailed every single detail except the most obvious one. During a routine traffic stop, an officer glanced into the back of the supposed plumbing van and found it utterly bare. There was not one wrench, one pipe, or one tool of any kind anywhere inside. A plumber traveling with zero plumbing equipment makes no sense at all, and that glaring emptiness gave the whole operation away instantly. 97. Silence is a strange thing to hear from a guitar. A traveler tried to hide contraband items inside the hollow body of an acoustic guitar, assuming a familiar instrument would breeze right through inspection. A suspicious customs officer decided to test it in the simplest way possible. He lifted the guitar and plucked the strings, fully expecting a warm, ringing tone. Instead, the instrument produced almost no sound at all, completely muffled by the dense stuffing crammed inside. A mute acoustic guitar is deeply unnatural, and that eerie quiet told the officer everything he needed to know. 98. Cactus needles do not respect the comfort of a plush hiding place. Wildlife traffickers tried to import rare, endangered miniature desert cacti by tucking them inside boxes filled with soft stuffed animals. The cuddly disguise looked harmless and gentle. The cacti, however, were not interested in cooperating. Their sharp needles poked straight through the fabric of the plush toys and out the other side. When the inspector reached into the box for a closer look, those hidden spines pricked his fingers immediately. A jab of pain instantly revealed the protected plants buried among the stuffing. 99. Trusting a drone's safety programming can send your crime straight back home. A specialized delivery drone was designed to drop contraband packages into a specific courtyard, and the crew believed the technology was flawless. Then, the software glitched. The drone system triggered a built-in return-to-home protocol, a safety feature meant to bring lost drones back to where they started. Obedient to its code, the machine turned around and flew the contraband directly back to its own launch pad. Unfortunately for the crew, police had already traced the site and were standing there waiting for the delivery. 100. Gold is generous with disguises but utterly merciless with weight. During the California gold rush, thieves tried to sneak stolen gold dust out of a camp by melting it into the center of large bars of laundry soap. On a shelf, the bars looked perfectly innocent. The trouble came at the wash basins. Real soap floats and lathers, but these gold-stuffed bars were impossibly dense. The moment they touched the water, they dropped like stones straight to the bottom of the basins. Anyone watching saw soap behave like an anchor, and instantly knew something valuable was hidden inside. 101. Hiding cargo under something foul can backfire on the driver before anyone else. A bootlegger buried his whiskey jugs beneath a deep load of fresh farm manure, certain no lawman would ever dig through such a revolting pile. He forgot that he had to ride along with it. Inside the closed cab, the overwhelming chemical stench grew thicker and thicker until it overpowered him completely. He passed out cold at the wheel, and the unmanned truck drifted slowly forward, rolling gently into a police checkpoint booth. His disguise had knocked out the only person it was meant to protect. 102. Headphones that connect to nothing have nothing innocent to say for themselves. A passenger tried to hide dense contraband inside a hollowed-out pair of premium over-ear headphones, confident the everyday gadget would draw no attention. The agent, however, noticed a small but glaring detail. The headphone cord was completely missing its copper audio jack, the little metal tip that actually plugs into a device. These headphones could not connect to anything at all. An agent who spots audio gear incapable of producing audio knows exactly what he is looking at, and the disguise quietly fell apart. 103. Some smuggled passengers simply refused to respect a tense moment. A traveler tried to move protected exotic tree frogs by sealing them inside a wet, insulated thermal coffee mug, hoping the damp warmth would keep them calm and quiet. The frogs felt cozy enough to start a chorus. Right in the middle of his formal security interview, loud, rhythmic croaking began rising from the mug sitting beside him. The officer paused mid-question. Coffee does not croak, and a mug that sings is impossible to explain. The frogs had cheerfully announced themselves at the worst possible time. 104. A trap built to catch contraband does not always check whose hand it catches. A modified delivery truck was outfitted with a secret pneumatic sliding wall compartment, a sleek mechanism the smuggler was very proud of. Mid-operation, the system jammed hard. As the smuggler reached inside to free his goods, the sliding wall seized shut and clamped firmly onto his own fingers, holding him completely stuck. He could not pull free no matter how desperately he tried. Emergency fire crews eventually arrived with the jaws of life to rescue a criminal trapped by his own invention. 105. Strong flavors travel into anything stored beside them. In colonial America, merchants tried to smuggle untaxed loose-leaf tobacco by hiding it inside barrels normally used for salted herring. The barrels still carried the deep, oily essence of the fish. Slowly during the voyage, that powerful herring flavor soaked completely into the dried tobacco leaves, saturating every shred of the cargo. By the time the barrels reached shore, the tobacco reeked and tasted unmistakably of fish, rendering the entire shipment totally unsmokable. The merchants had successfully smuggled a fortune in tobacco that absolutely no one would buy. 106. Throwing your cargo overboard only works if the cargo can actually leave the boat. A Prohibition rum runner spotted a pursuing Coast Guard vessel and decided to dump his illegal wooden crates into the sea to destroy the evidence. He heaved them over the side with great urgency. What he had completely forgotten was that he had securely lashed the main tow line directly to his own boat's stern railing. The crates splashed down and then simply trailed behind him in the water like obedient ducklings, dragging the proof of his crime straight to the officers. 107. A disguise made of wax has no chance against a warm room. A smuggler molded a massive decorative candle around a hidden stash of illegal goods, admiring how solid and ordinary it appeared. The international baggage terminal, however, was uncomfortably warm. As the heat soaked into the candle, the wax slowly softened, sagged, and began drooping out of shape. Its grip on the contraband loosened completely, and the hidden goods quietly slid free and dropped onto the terminal floor. Travelers watched a melting candle calmly give birth to a pile of contraband right in the middle of the room. 108. Mixing wild seeds with farm seeds is a gamble against a sharp pair of eyes. A traveler tried to bring in protected wildflower seeds by hiding them inside a commercial packet of carving pumpkin seeds. The plan assumed all seeds basically look alike. They do not. The inspector tipped the packet open and immediately noticed the tiny wild seeds were completely different shapes and colors from the large, familiar pumpkin seeds surrounding them. The mismatch practically jumped off his palm. One careful glance at the strange little intruders was all it took to unravel the disguise. 109. A vehicle that loses its steering will happily betray its owner in circles. Criminals built a custom remote-controlled miniature submarine to quietly ferry contraband across a lake, picturing a smooth, invisible underwater crossing. Then, the rudder failed completely. With no way to steer, the little submarine could not travel in a straight line at all. Instead, it began spinning in tight, frantic circles right on the surface of the water, perfectly visible to anyone nearby. The local harbor patrol noticed the bizarre swirling object, motored over, and simply towed the dizzy little submarine and its cargo straight in. 110. Losing a label can accidentally turn a smuggler into a generous neighbor. In the 1700s, merchants tried to sneak illegal Dutch gin into town by storing it inside barrels marked as cheap cider vinegar. The disguise relied entirely on those shipping labels staying attached. Somewhere in transit, the labels peeled off and fell away. With no way to tell the barrels apart anymore, the merchants accidentally sold their valuable high-proof gin to local townspeople as ordinary vinegar. The town got a wonderfully strange bargain, and the smugglers handed away a fortune for the price of cheap pantry vinegar. 111. A roof that can blow away is a poor partner for keeping secrets. A moonshiner hid his copper cooking apparatus beneath a loose sheet of tin roofing on his barn, trusting the metal panel to keep his still out of sight. The weather had not agreed to those terms. A sudden, powerful windstorm swept through and ripped the tin sheet completely free, sending it clattering and clanging wildly across the yard. With its cover gone, the illegal still sat fully exposed in broad daylight. A passing mail carrier glanced over, took in the whole scene, and knew exactly what he was looking at. And there you have it. 111 criminals who proved that committing a crime and committing comedy are the exact same thing. These geniuses had drones, tunnels, and big dreams, and still got beaten by hungry horses, melting cheese, and their own underwear. If you made it this far, you have got a longer attention span than every smuggler on this list combined. So smash that like button, subscribe to Dumb History so you never miss another disaster, and comment which idiot deserves the gold medal for dumbest plan ever. We will see you in the next one, where the criminals are dumb and the stories are even dumber.